It is quite understandable in a world that is in a state of flux as our own at the moment happens to be, with all these chaotic situations and worrisome thoughts plaguing people's minds. It's very much perceivable as to the added difficulties that people have to now face, on top of the challenges, the many hurdles that people have to overcome on a daily basis. It is very understandable. To have us be so overwhelmed, and even to the point of drowning, at least in the case of drowning in terms of the data that's flowing in, that's coming in, all the barrage of information. And usually it is information that is, unfortunately, causing people to have these concerns of added worries, added fears, not just about themselves, but of the future, the planet, etc., where people are in a nonchalant manner talking openly, casually about war. Fear-mongering. When you take a chart as to how people have been pulled out of their sense of safety during the last few decades, you see it's an exponential rate at which we're going. Humanity has, in a sense, been pushed to the brink of collapse. I'm not talking about civilizations necessarily just as a collection of people or populations. I'm talking about the individual now. So these are concerns that I totally understand. And it's natural for people to have these worries and fears, which is why it is even more important to hold your ground, to do the opposite of what all of these various different factors, be they data, information. Most of it happens to be false information, by the way. But nevertheless, they do have an impact. If not upon you, but they definitely have an impact on those people around you, your neighbors, your loved ones, your wife, your children, your husband, your co-workers, your boss, the people on the road as you go to work, people on the bus. So you cannot expect for yourself to go ahead and influence everyone around you by sitting and talking some sense to them, with them, by highlighting certain facts to ease their mind through rational thinking. No. There's a quicker way to bring about harmony, tranquility. And that is by you raising your own, let's use the term, vibration. You have to increase your frequency of joy that the heart puts out. You know, the heart puts out its own frequency. The brain puts out its own frequency. Every cell in our bodies does put out a certain frequency. Organelles put out their own frequency. By the way, organelles are the tiny little parts that make the cell work. And on the other hand, if we're not protecting ourselves from the negativity that is going on, what invariably happens is the opposite. The kidneys start to fail. Why? The spleen does not function to absorb energy, to refine the food, nutrients that you're taking in. The heart starts to cringe and collapse. The lungs don't work. They don't fill up fully. Expand. They won't. And now you're starting to fight with your own body. You can't even go to the bathroom because everything is so tight and tense and you're forcing things. Why? Because you're speeding up death when you don't have to. This undercurrent, this undertone of doom and gloom that I'm sensing and people are dreading in the world today, that is not the norm. That is not healthy. That is the opposite of what, therefore, I'm recommending here, which is to allow the kidneys to breathe, to allow the lungs to expand, to allow your face to relax and smile, to allow the eyes to move about in different directions, diagonally, instead of just being like deer in the headlights, looking straight ahead, and just, which is basically conveying that you're terrified, at least emotionally, psychologically. That's why people are having such a terrible time trying to sleep, and they can't. Because we're, as a population, as individuals, we're being harassed by so many negative influences, not just news-related, not just politics or world, global, etc., situations related, but something that has been building up to drive us down. So we have to do the opposite. Raising the frequency. How do you do that? Am I going to fake it until I make it? I guess for some people, yeah, if that's going to be the way to go. If you've never experienced a state of peace, tranquility, then perhaps retiring early to bed at night. Try to see if you can get to your bedroom or wherever you sleep half an hour early, turn off the lights, put some soft white noise type of a background noise, or even some quiet, calm, relaxing music that doesn't have any beats to it, that doesn't increase your heart rate. And lay down, either on the ground or on your bed, and just allow yourself to watch the breath going in through the nose. Allow the breath to come out through the mouth. A few times at least. And then just let go. And if your mind, your thoughts come crashing in, trying to drag you, go ahead and just temporarily focus on some part of your body that is neutral, some experience, some sensation you're having that is neutral. Perhaps even the way that the bedsheet feels underneath your body, or how it feels underneath your hands. Or getting up early, half an hour, and then laying down on the floor, or if you have the ability to go outside, and if the weather permits, to stand outside, watch the sunrise, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 2 minutes, even if it's 8 seconds. Just observe, look at the sunrise. Or if you can't see the sun, at least look at the sky. Even if you get up and there's nothing but stars, that's still wonderful. I remember when I was in my 20s, early 20s, mid-20s, and we were up in the mountains, above Los Angeles, east of Los Angeles, Big Bear. That's the place is called. And it had just snowed. And we had rented this cottage. And for some reason I wasn't feeling so good. I was struggling with many worries, many thoughts, many disappointments, many concerns. And I told my friends I'm just going to head outside, just walk, and just be out walking in the woods. Not too far from the cottage. So I used to listen to Italian opera at the time. And I was nicely decked, thick, coat and everything, beanie hat, nicely insulated. And instead of walking, I decided to just lay down on the ground, because I looked up and I saw the stars through the tops of the trees. It was so beautiful, I couldn't miss it. And I said, I have to do this. Part of my brain went, no, it's too cold. You're gonna get pneumonia. You're gonna freeze. I said, once my spine starts shivering, then I'll get up. That's fine. I'll walk around and, we'll see what happens. So as I'm listening to, at the time I used to listen to Puccini operas, Italian operas, classical, arias, and it just fit. For me, it was so relaxing. I was completely removed from all the internal turmoil, the noise, the this versus that, disappointments, the hurt, the betrayal, all these things that were coming in, crashing through my mind, the uncertainties, etc. I was looking at the stars, and all of a sudden they just disappeared, all those concerns. And I said, whatever happens, it's okay. This is real. My thoughts aren't. My worries about the future are not. This is real as far as I'm concerned, because I am feeling good. I was raising my frequency. So what I'm suggesting here, I'm a Buddhist monk, I'm not, we're not supposed to say, oh, go ahead and listen to music or dance or this and that. For lay people, that's your thing, go ahead and do it. But what I'm recommending here is to increase your vibration by doing something that is positive, that brings joy to your heart, that brings lightness to your feet, to your toes, where you start jumping, lightening up. No amount of reading books, just for the sake of the book, reading to help you become removed from what's happening around you. This is not trying to stick your head in the sand, pretend nothing's happening, or ignore what's happening. Sometimes ignoring is a good thing, but we have to substitute it with something else. I was describing to a student how if you have a pot of plants, but in fact, instead of plants being there, you have weeds and things growing, and you don't want to keep them, you pull them out from their roots, but you don't keep the soil like that. If you do, there's going to be more weeds coming in and establishing themselves there. New root systems will show up out of nowhere, because spores are all over the place. But if you're going to remove them, you have to substitute it with something positive. Unfortunately, what we have not been doing is, or has been, not putting in enough positive elements into our lives because of the various different demands that society keeps piling on top of us. The speed at which technology moves, the speed at which, and inflation people talk about, economists talk about deficits and this and that, and people not making enough money, etc., to pay for their necessities. People barely have time to lift their head in some countries from the table, from the desk, because at the workplace, because they're overwhelmed with work. That's not good. That means the person's energy is rock bottom. So no wonder that individuals are getting sicker and sicker and sicker by the day, which means one thing: your energy is too low. I was mentioning about the kidneys failing. Well, in Chinese medicine, for example, the kidneys, when they're not functioning well, guess what? One of the things that the doctor does, the acupuncturist does, is ask you a series of investigative questions to find out if there's any fear present in your life. Because that's usually a big, sign when the kidneys aren't working. Or when the heart is behaving in weird manner. Or when you're not breathing well enough. Or your diaphragm is not moving well enough to expand, to allow room for the lungs to move downward, to expand the lobes properly. So, emotions are very important. Emotions have everything to do with the way you're thinking. The more you think about negative scenarios, negative possibilities, too serious of subjects, doom and gloom I was mentioning, the more you get pulled into that vortex, the more your body will be affected. Because emotions are the language of the body. So when emotions go off whack, the body will as well. And you're going to get sick. Your immune system is going to become weaker, and you will become more susceptible to illness, sickness, and uncomfortable living, to say the least. So that's the body, physical side. And then I mentioned the emotions. So watch out for the types of emotions you're entertaining. If you find yourself always on edge or at the edge of your chair, when the phone rings and you're immediately thinking about the worst case scenario, when you turn on your news channel, whatever it is, your podcast or whatever services you listen to find out about the world, and you're anticipating the worst case scenario, it's time for you to lighten up. It's time for you to increase your frequency. It's time for you to spend some time alone to feel the lovely side of life, which you've forgotten, obviously. It will not come on its own. That's also what I'm trying to say. Because what does happen is many people cram their heads with more and more data, especially in terms of meditation, principles, the various teachings from the discourses, by overloading your system with data, with even the Dhamma, that is so beautiful. Beautiful in its beginning, beautiful in its middle, and beautiful in its ending. Nevertheless, you will become top-heavy with undigested information. Okay, you're inspired. Okay, big deal. How are you qualitatively in your heart, in your body? Because that's going to say a lot. I've met many students who come in and you can see from their walk, they're not in tune, they're not in harmony with their body, with their emotions. Something's off. So I have to work with them to bring them back to earth, to help them to become grounded, to really connect with their bodies to the point where they can actually, without guilt, feel good about feeling good. Meaning, in the absence of guilt. Recently I gave a talk on guilt because I'm noticing there's a lot of that in society today. We might admit it, we might not, but it's there. Because no amount of Dhamma, no amount of proper teaching is going to remove that dirt from the heart, that contaminant, that asava, we call it in Buddhism, from inside, because it contaminates the heart, contaminates your whole being. So you're not doing make-believe. However, you're facilitating, you're opening spaces in your daily life to enjoy something. Enjoy this thing called life. When was the last time you actually touched your wrist and tried to look for your pulse, just like when we were children we used to do? When was the last time you've done that? Or hold up a mirror next to your face, or really get your, face into a mirror and look closely to one eye to see the colors, the patterns of your eye. Or I remember we used to do something else, like, magnifying glass. Holding a magnifying glass, I guess there are some apps nowadays on the phone that could do that. Really get close and see the pores on your skin. So what I'm offering here is a change in perspective. And lightening up, increasing your vibration has everything to do with changing, altering your perspective. In a fancy way, if you have the means to go traveling somewhere. But nowadays, they've made it so difficult, so complex, you don't have to get on a plane. You could go in your neck of the woods, wherever you may be living. It might be on a, taking a side road somewhere where you haven't been, or a neighborhood that you haven't gone to. Park the car, go walking a little bit. I used to do that some time ago when I was a layman. Just walk around. Anything to really raise your frequency. It could be something with directly by using the body, for example, in the case of drawing or sculpting, washing the dishes, as you have, let's say, your favorite music playing. As long as it doesn't increase the heart rate, that's key. You don't want it to be too fast, because that's going to create, it's going to jumble up the whole mental state. And that's not what we're after. First, you need to bring it to a baseline. That's why you're laying down, or you're allowing the music to soothe you. So we need to soothe first, because you're not going to get raising a frequency, raising a vibration, whatever you want to call it, to describe that lovely state where there's harmonizing of your whole being, by simply reading something. You need the participation of the body. The breathing is the easiest way. Going and getting a nice, giving yourself a nice shower, giving yourself a lovely walk. If you have access to a body of water, going and walking around the pond or the lake or by the seashore. And if you can't find any of this, there's always YouTube videos of these places. You can put it on loop or something and listen to it, dimming the light in your room and sitting there and just enjoying the change in scenery, internal scenery you're giving yourself. So please work on raising your vibration. Smile more. Lighten up. Move the body if you can. Hmm.